Parker makes $364,000 in gold after getting rookie operator to move Slucifer. Parker, who had a lot of knowledge, kept showing off his accomplishments all these years. Not long ago, he did something even more amazing. He made $364,000 in gold by getting a new operator to move the Slucifer. The project already owed a huge $15 million, and Parker didn't know how to get out of this mess. There were daily costs and pressing repairs that needed to be done. There was some hope in the idea of getting a $160 million payday in the Dominion, but there were many unknowns along the way. It became clear when he admitted that the whole thing was making him feel pretty worried. He felt a little uneasy for the first time in a few years. He wasn't alone, though, which was good. His team would be there for him no matter what. To save the working bodies, Tyson had to take on everything. He got permission to use the mine from Ken Tatlow and Stuart Schmidt, and then began the impossible job of making the experience great again. No one expected the first cut to be so bad, and it took a lot longer than anyone thought it would. As soon as Parker realized how important it was, the pressure rose. He thought Tyson would be able to get up soon. The determination of Parker stayed strong, even though the work to prepare the new spot was hard. He went on to say that while he was getting El Dardo ready, he thought he had a lot of time. But when he was getting the next plant pad ready, he realized he didn't. As Parker dealt with the problems at El Dorado, everyone was left wondering if his unwavering determination would help him get through the tough times and find the gold stores that could make his mining project a success. Parker and Tyson were both involved in the El Dorado. Moving the wash plant at the El Dorado cut was a huge task that turned some important events in Tyson's life. They had everything they needed except time, because the process had to be done by a certain date. The due date for this job was Sunday, and if it was completed successfully, it would be able to stay alive. The plot jumbled up money problems, practical issues, and the almost constant search for the jackpot at Dominion into a mess of problems that needed to be carefully handled. The financial situation added another level of difficulty to the story. The operation, which was already a financial puzzle, was done with the worry of possible bills and the costs of running the business. As I watch them, I can't help but wonder, will this smart move help them find the gold mines they were looking for? Or will it be a big mistake on the crazy road of gold mining? At some point in this nail-biting story, you couldn't help but wonder, would Parker Schnabel's huge risk pay off? Or would his growing financial responsibilities and practical problems make it impossible for him to reach his goal of finding a gold mine? Dominion is a world where gold rules and fortunes can change in an instant. Parker Schnabel found himself in a very bad spot. Now is the time for the dream of the unreachable gold to change. Along with it came hard times financially, so the business could stay open. The heat had almost made this area its home. It makes me wonder what it's like to be ruled over. The answer is as easy as the question, but it beautifully describes the harsh conditions these miners have to work in every day. The word Domian means sovereign, and the people who were looking for treasure buried in its land often tell it what its rules are. Another look at the area points to the harshness that is hidden by the light. Parker and his team's determination should definitely be praised. Recently, the weather has gone up, which has raised the bar for what is acceptable. This seemingly normal talk showed how hard these people's lives were. They had to work from dawn until dusk in the hot sun. The next step was to sluice there, but that wasn't official yet. As the thought of starting the sluicing process set in, there was a sense of excitement in the air. After some time, they said that sluicing wouldn't happen because they needed to get better at it first before moving the business. The team was eager to start sluicing, but first, they had to make some strategic choices. There was a lot of tension in the gold mining business because Tico, who was making efforts to make things run more smoothly, set a hard goal. As the order echoed through the mining site, the story unfolded quickly. Tico wanted the plant to begin buzzing before morning. The attention then turned to Tyson, whose scary job it was to move Slucifer around on a pole that wasn't stable. Tyson had to make up Slucifer out of a leaning stick he had lying around. The language used made it clear that the business was sloppy and rushed, even if no one knew how to make learning staff. Putting pressure on Tyson became an important part of the story, a major source of tension that gave the story more depth. To move the Slucifer, you had to have a steady hand and a lot of skill that you learned over time. Tyson had to deal with a lack of experienced hands while working on a tough job. Alec and Liam helped out the last time, and it looked like they were going to drag Lucifer while Evan Kurtz, who was just an operator and didn't know how to move a wash plant, moved Lucifer. The moving of the wash plant was complicated by the fact that parts had to be slung up to the sluicer and then pulled down to the new pad by the 750. The main reason it was hard to do was because changing wash plants was hard to do when there were already few hands available. As Tyson and Evan took on the job of moving the pieces of sluicer to its new location, the story took an interesting turn. It wasn't just a jump that was being planned, it was a symbolic risk in the dangerous world of gold mining. Once sluicer was taken apart piece by piece, sharing could be seen as both a risky move and a game of chance. People who watched this story grow as a dynamic journey had to think about what would happen with the operation and the luck that was going on at the same time. Everything that was done in the world of gold mining had the power to change the whole course of the season, even sluicer's seemingly random jump. The 45-ton wash plant, sluicer, that held the promise of $364,000 in gold hung over their heads. Tyson and his team had to carefully move sluicer so that the process would go as planned. To get to its new wash plant pad, sluicer had to go up a steep ramp, which was hard to do because of the environment. Tyson used the 750 excavator, which was the best one on site at the time, to help carry the heavy Lucifer up the hill because he knew it was a period piece. As the story goes on, there is an amazing scene of bravery as they try to get around their opponent. But behind it all is the dangerous operation. The shot was tense because of the way the land was angled and how rude the Washington plant was. The wash plant started to slowly but surely rise because Tyson knew how to use everything he had at the time in a strategic way. From the first few steps toward the wash plant, you could feel the stress in the story, and Tyson's main point made the already difficult task even harder. He said that his bucket would be used as a small wrench. He talked about how you need to be able to adapt and be creative when you run into problems you didn't expect. At this point, everyone is almost in pain from the fight and can feel the strain of the hard mental and physical work that needs to be done to get the sluicer where it needs to be. Tyson's smart use of the bucket as a makeshift crowbar showed how important it was to be able to think quickly and change to survive in the unpredictable world of gold mining. So the operation as a whole relied on the team, and how well they did in this last stage was crucial to achieving the overall goal of a successful season in the Dominion. If this last step is completed successfully, not only will the difficult task be over, but Parker Schnabel will also have the chance to reach his big season goal. The team's ability to deal with the difficulty of this important configuration determined whether the whole operation succeeded or failed. As soon as the work was done, the wash plant set firmly on the pad, giving everyone a sense of readiness and accomplishment. The construction of the conveyor and the hopper feeder was a big deal in and of itself. It was a clear sign that gold processing was about to start. After following this high-stakes operation through all of its changes and surprises, I couldn't help but feel satisfied. There was a promise of gold worth $364,000 off in the distance. The problems were solved, and now everyone was waiting for the next part of Parker Schnabel's story. This move could change everything for Parker. It could get him a big payday and help him beat the challenges of gold digging in Dominion. After finding $364,000 in gold, he was making smart decisions, like letting a new operator move the sluicer, which was the most important job. Using sluicer and Gold Rush has had a big effect on the show and the people who watch it. Slucifer's demonstration of cutting-edge technology shows how the gold mining business has changed over time. The time was running out, and every second counted as they looked for the hard-to-find gold that would decide whether the mission succeeded or failed. Parker said he liked how the move was organized. After the rig move, the story went on to look at the day after. Everyone was so eager to hear the result that they stood on edge to listen. They knew that today's machine was the only one that could tell them how productive the whole season had been. The news of the golden sample led to both hope and disappointment. We called that sluicing. Parker was looking for a 5,000-ounce endonym to keep his business from going through a lot of trouble. He needed 300 ounces of water a week to get it. For the team, this was the last payment thanks to Parker's Vice, a 5,000-ounce season worth $364,000. After that, the count by the number of ounces showed that there was, in fact, a pileup that was different from the group's weekly goal, but still impressive.
All right, 20, 40, 60, 70, 110, 120.
Eventually, they will discover gold valued at $240,000. Consequently, what strategies did they employ to overcome their obstacles? How did they manage to function amidst severe weather conditions? As we investigate alongside Parker, he discovers gold valued at $240,000 on Tony Beats' claim. How it all began. In a brief period of time, Parker Schnabel and his team have never before mined more ground than they do now, following the completion of a deal with Tony Beats. Prior to the conclusion of the season, he must complete the task, and spring is considered the ideal time to set things up. They have resolved to exert maximum effort in the pursuit of completing it prior to the autumn, in the hopes of attaining a favorable result. Although the team harbors skepticism regarding their capacity to complete the project within the allotted timeframe, they maintain an optimistic outlook. Nona Lovelace affirms that this year's sprint is a complete sprint, as the anticipated completion date is in the spring. A member of the team, Tatiana Costa, exclaims that the quantity of snowfall they encountered was indescribable, as each surface was blanketed in dense snow that demanded additional exertion to clear. She then transports the frozen overburden to the waste pile in order to make room for additional labor. Following 4 days of operations proceeding as scheduled and equipment functioning flawlessly, the team avidly awaits the verdict of the novel Tony Beats claim, not anticipating any adverse consequences. Following the completion of 4 days of machine operation, the team becomes eagerly anticipating the outcome of the new Tony Beats claim, cognizant of the effort they have invested. As a consequence, the total weight of the gold realized was 137.8, which is approximately $240,000. The group expresses gratitude to Tony Beats and recognizes the possibility of a hectic season. They ponder the difficulties, the readiness of the apparatus, and the promising beginning to the season. Parker concluded by expressing gratitude to the entire team for returning for a second season, for their contributions to the success of the project, for the team's inspection of the used equipment, and for putting in so much effort to ensure the project's success. Gold Rush elevated the profile of the youthful and prosperous gold miner Parker Schnabel to prominence. He was born in Haines, Alaska, on July 22, 1994, into a family with a significant heritage in the gold mining industry. Parker became a member of Gold Rush during its second season at the tender age of 17. Despite his youth, he exhibited remarkable prowess in the field of gold extraction and a diligent work ethic. Parker achieved the distinction of becoming the youngest mining foreman in the history of the Klondike during his time on the program. Since assuming control of the Big Nugget mine from his patriarch, John Schnabel, his mining operations have grown. Parker has confronted a multitude of obstacles, encompassing apparatus failures, severe weather circumstances, and the demands of managing a prosperous mining enterprise. Despite earning millions of dollars annually, he does not retain the entire amount for personal use. He employs a team, and while their precise remuneration remains undisclosed, it is probable that they amass a considerable fortune when they unearth substantial quantities of gold over the course of a season. Parker abandoned his studies in favor of excavating, with the expectation of uncovering not only a hidden treasure but also an entire way of living. A substantial quantity of gold was discovered by Parker Schnabel and his team in the second season of Gold Rush. They obtained 34 ounces worth a total of $55,000. Parker was profoundly affected by this discovery, which motivated him to continue with the program and mining thereafter. Parker Schnabel estimated that the largest fragment of gold he had ever discovered weighed no more than a quarter ounce and was valued at between $400 and $500. He elaborated that it is uncommon to discover gems of that size and that the gold industry has undergone significant transformations since his grandfather began working in it in the 1980s. Parker Schnabel is determined to improve this time around. A depth of approximately 40 feet must be dug by him and his crew in order to discover the gold. But it is expensive. Thousands of dollars must be added to the $15 million that he has already invested in the property. Further, this serves as the initial stage. This season, Parker is confronted with a critical choice that has the potential to alter the course of his mining career. Parker Schnabel aims to surpass his previous record of discovering 5,300 ounces of gold with a value of $9 million. He is now setting an even more ambitious goal, obtaining 6,000 ounces from the Indian River. Confronting the difficulties of the Klondike, he is resolute and perseverant. A great deal of determination is anticipated from him throughout this thrilling voyage. Audiences have witnessed Parker's leadership, determination, and capacity to make difficult decisions under duress throughout the course of the series. His reputation stems from the fact that he challenges himself and his crew to accomplish lofty objectives. Parker Schnabel, notwithstanding the fluctuations, has emerged as one of the most accomplished and widely recognized individuals in the film Gold Rush. Gold Rush featured a diverse workforce of crew members who were integral to Parker Schnabel's mining operations. Every member made a contribution that aligned with the initial plan for the project's success. What are your reflections on this particular occurrence of Parker's conquest? Additionally, for more thrilling adventures, please subscribe to our channel and like this video. Continue to be tuned for more. Gold mining may look very careful and serious, but even the most skilled miners make mistakes from time to time. Miners have had their fair share of ups and downs, from small mistakes that are easy to miss to big ones that cost a lot of money and make team members angry. Come with us as we look into the most stupid parts of the gold rush, putting the $1 million dredge down. The dredge owned by Tony Beets sank for the second time in 6 weeks. He was told to go down and check on the dredge, even though it was his day off. What Tony saw when he got there could have been better. That machine held a lot of money, and it was just sitting there. It wasn't a happy moment. It looked like the team knew how bad things were, but they didn't know where to begin. The issue had to be fixed, but it was extra hard because the machine had to work by the time Tony got back. They were working on the pontoons to get rid of the water and get the dredge to float again. They thought something was broken. The pontoons quickly filled with water. Knowing how bad things were getting, one of the team members just turned around and signed, saying that Tony and Kevin would not be happy with this. When they tried to fix things quickly, there was too much water in the pontoons, so they just tried to lighten the load to get rid of the weight. They were sure that the boss would not be happy with them because the company loses about $1,000 an hour when the digger is not working. In the end, that's a lot of cash. They set up 6 pumps to drain the water to fix the problem with the pump that was sinking, but they knew they were losing. They didn't even believe the pumps could do the job. Mike really helped them out by getting a strong pump that could move 3,000 liters of water per minute. After fixing the pump, they left it to do its job. They remembered that $1,000 went by every hour. They had been pumping for water for 12 hours and spent $12,000 on it. They finally pumped the water out of the pontoons. They needed to figure out why the digger sank in the first place. When Roger Redball looked at the dredge and saw that the doors were open, it was a big surprise. The team had been working on their own problems and trying to get through the cut. They realized that this wasn't a natural or technical failure, but rather an error made by a person. Because the doors were open, sand and water could get into the pontoons and cause the dredge to sink. The whole thing was their fault. When Tony and Kevin got back from the sale, they did what they were supposed to do and asked what happened. The mine boss still wanted to know why the doors were left open, even after he knew what had happened. It turned out that the night shift team was to blame. They weren't looking at the digger. Now that the pontoons were fixed, Tony didn't want to point the finger at anyone. He just wanted to turn the dredge around and use it again. Again, the groundwater and water from the holding pond made the dredge float. They were getting ready for the next step. She and her team showed that they were ready, and they asked Mike right away how to move the dredge. Kevin told them to work quickly so Jason wouldn't be able to start digging in the new area. The dredge was going to be turned 90 degrees, which would make the tailings line swing over the road. Careful steps were needed for this. They looked and saw that the back end was pretty close to the shore. With a very important moment coming up, the team knew they had to make some tricky moves to get the dredge through a tough spot. They were hoping that they would be able to make the turn. Even though there might be some problems, they were happy and glad when the dredge was finally in the right place because everything went as planned. When the turn went well, the team took a look at what had happened and was happy with how things turned out. Now that the dredge was ready to start getting gold again, they were excited about the chance to get some prizes. The bucket's noise showed that things were going well, and everyone on the team was feeling good and hopeful about what they were doing. The night shift crew did something really stupid that almost damaged Tony's dredge. But what a new driver did to a truck was even worse. The whole truck was almost destroyed, almost making an engine burst. After 11 weeks of digging, Tony had brought in more than 1,000 ounces of gold. But he wasn't completely happy. There had to be more made. In 2 of his cuts, the 8-acre blue cut and the 9-acre cold cut, he was trying to catch Paradise Hill's sought-after white Chanel pay run. But the weather had been bad for him for the past 6 weeks. He was back in the cold cut, where there was still a lot of money to be made. To make up for the time he lost, Tony planned to sluice day and night for the first time this season to double his output. 3 new drivers were brought in to help the team because there was a lot of work to be done. The 3 guys were way too excited about the season. They thought it was great to be over there trying to work off the ladder and hoping to work in the yard and see some real good. It was better than seeing them with fancy jewelry on. They had to show Tony they had the right skills before they could work the night job. The boss had a lot of faith in them. He told them that if they were smart and wanted to learn, they could learn anything about welding or motors. They could find a way through life if they knew which way to go. The rookies were to be trained by Megan Gondet, who had worked for Parker before going back to work for Tony the previous year. Thomas was one of the newbies, and she told him not to do anything crazy, but to focus on being more productive. But Thomas had done a really stupid thing. It was back at the yard that lead mechanic Kevin Beat noticed something wasn't right. He was working on the trucks that were needed for the Paradise Hills Blitz. Where was the 4th truck? It turned out that Thomas was in charge. The trouble was that truck number 4 was broken, too hot, and couldn't be used. Kevin marked cars that needed repairs before they could be used with lockout tags. What a stupid thing Thomas did. He didn't care about the tag, and it wasn't even signed. Thomas made a big mistake for a first-timer. It was a big deal to take a truck with a lockout tag on it. Thomas was putting the engine at risk, and Tony now knew about it. Thomas had a good chance of getting sent off, but it didn't happen. He was told by his boss to get back in a truck. He gave the new driver another chance, but this time in a truck that was in good shape and had been signed out. The newbies were full again. More trucks were better. We saw Tony having trouble with water and his dredge, but he wasn't the only one who had trouble with water because of a mistake. Parker has his fair share of water issues. In his case, he almost lost all of his wolf cut pay, a mining site that is now underwater. Parker was looking for a pay streak in the 4-acre wolf cut on the far side of his Alaskan claim. He hoped that it would bring him at least 1,000 ounces this season. The group was trying to get to pay dirt 30 feet below, but they had to dig out 1,000 yards of extra material. 4 more feet would bring them to the water, and then it would be 30 feet to the rocks. But it looked like it was cooler than it really was. It would be very hard for them because they were working next to a pond. Frozen mud was the best option because it kept the water out. Recruit John Baudry was told to deal with the mud and keep the water out, but it looked like the cut was pretty wet. They called their boss to stop things before they got worse. It turned out that the mud got worse as they opened up more places. They still hadn't cut out even a fifth of the hole. There is an old pond next to the wolf cut. There was only a small berm between them. They dug down and found frozen ice that stopped the water from getting in. Now, it let water from the pond seep through the berm and fill the cut. Soon there will be a lot of water in the area. There was a need for action to save the day. They thought getting a pump would be the best thing for them to do. Parker's plan to stop the water was to dig a pond into the ground at the cut's deepest point and put in an 8-inch pump to clear it. After setting it up, they had to wait until the next day. You might be wondering what went wrong with the plan now. The plan as a whole was good and seemed to work, but how could you choose a pump to drain that much water without first making sure it works and fixing any problems it might have? The next day, everyone on the team went for a hike to check out their nice, dry wolf cut, but they were about to get a big shock. Where did their pump go? It looked like the pump was gone, and instead of a cutting that was completely dry, they found a lake. The pump system had broken down, filling the cut and putting the pump 4 feet below the water level. $500,000 were about to slip through their hands. The pump was so deep that they couldn't even walk up to it. Tyson had to pull a small kayak out with a chain in the excavator to get the pump to dry ground where they could work on it. The question was why they didn't work on it the day before and save time and money. Mark Fors, the foreman, said that the debris was blocking the suction filter at the end of the hose, which caused the water level to rise and cover the whole pump. He had to disassemble and repair the engine and come up with a plan to protect the pump from more flooding. This could have been done the day before, which would have saved them the whole night. His wolf almost got cut by this mistake, but Parker also did something shockingly stupid, and he almost had to say goodbye to Big Red. Parker's horrible mistake. Parker had finally realized a lifelong dream by digging his own Klondike claim. But with only a year left on the water lease, he only had one session to find all the gold on the huge 115-acre property. It only took him a little over 8 years to grow his Alaskan business from 2 people to 17 people and millions of dollars in sales. Dean, his foreman, quit, so he had to do some things as a foreman to get the company going. He was now in charge of everything as the manager. It made sense for him to do it because he knew more about the process than anyone else on his crew. The Chester cut was being mined by his team. His mechanic, Mitch, was taking care of the big machinery, fixing the trucks, and getting them ready for work. Bree Harrison, who was operating the loader, was moving gold-rich pay dirt through Big Red and getting rid of the useless process rocks and dirt. Brennan Ruock put the dirt that Bree was going to use through the wash plant. There was no standing foreman to be seen during any of this. Everyone was working on their own jobs. He still hadn't shown up to tell the team what to do that day. They were already weeks behind schedule. Things would go a lot better if Parker showed up and stayed there the whole time. Parker showed up in the end and helped the team out a bit. The fact that Bree was running the whole business by herself made her look stressed. Because of this, Parker chose to get into the fuel truck and help get things fueled so that she could keep going. But Parker made a huge mistake at that point, one I won't forget quickly. He promised to help Bree, but instead he got sidetracked and looked for any gold that might still be in the places that had just been dug up. He had always wanted to do more panning on the floor that the guys who were pulling the pay had left behind, because he wouldn't stand for anyone being left behind. As the standing manager, he had to be there at the start and end of every shift to go over the days and nights' plans. He was in charge of sluicing and cleaning and had to plan how the plant would move next. There were 2 times a day when he had to make sure everything had fuel. It was a lot to handle. However, he didn't do these things. Instead, he went off to look for extra gold when his team really needed him. There are results to everything you do, and the mistake had its results. The whole plant shut down. The pump wasn't putting out any water, so Big Red's pre-wash was full of dirt. It was too dangerous to keep going because the pre-wash was about to boil over. Bree had to stop everything before it got worse. The harm might not be fixable. Why wasn't there any water? Not enough power. Yes, Parker said he would feed everything, but he didn't. Big Red was now down. It would have saved a lot of time and money to do something so easy. He messed that up, though. About $2,000 worth of gold is left in the ground every hour that Big Red is down. To be fair, it had been a long time since he had to deal with operations maintenance. There have been mistakes made by miners, which has cost their bosses money and property damage. Parker's team made a big mistake that cost him a lot of money. Big fuck up. Mitch and Brennan had a hard time moving Big Red a week ago, but they made a mistake that cost Parker a lot of money. Now, Aaron had to make sure that Slucifer didn't die the same way, which would have cost Parker more money. The team had recently seen a lot of rain, which was very scary because getting paid while wet wasn't fun at all. It always made things worse. In the beginning, Aaron worked for Parker as a truck driver. Since then, he has shown that he is good at driving a loader and is now in charge of Parker's most productive wash plant. He was by himself with the wash plant that day and did something very stupid. He made a big mistake because he had already done that stupid thing. He was thinking about how lucky he was to have the job when he dropped some wet pay on the conveyor belt, which was a big problem. It had already been a month late for Parker on the Indian River, and now the wash plant was full. Aaron ran back as fast as he could to turn it off, but he wasn't quick enough. He put wet pay into the hopper, which then slid down the smooth running belt, clogged the roller, and stopped the conveyor. He needs to finish letting go of it soon so that the plant can be moved. The shutdown took time, and each hour cost more than $5,000. Aaron and JM finally got rid of all the wet pay on the rollers. Now the plant should fire up and start working again. The truth, though, is much worse. The plant wouldn't come to life. They heard a strange beeping sound instead, which they didn't understand. Aaron knew, though, that the plant would be down for longer than they thought. That meant more money was lost. He chose to talk to his boss about it and see what he could do. Porter, on the other hand, was very busy and needed more time. Instead, he told him to go find Shane. Aaron hoped that Shane could fix the plant with one magic touch, but when Aaron got there, Shane found something that Aaron didn't expect. The belt was not attached to the motor, so it was broken. What a problem that was. It was impossible to turn the belt because the heavy wet pay had broken it. Aaron couldn't stop letting his stupid mistake bother him. They worked on the plant for 2 hours, and Shane fixed the broken belt during that time. Even though the plant finally got back up and running, the damage was already done. It was already late, and Aaron's stupid mistake cost Parker important time. Say what you think about these shocking mistakes these skilled workers made. Tell us in the group.